So, hey there, AI and education enthusiasts. My name is Zach Kinsler, and I'm here on my very first episode of Smarter Campus podcast brought to you by Boodlebox. And what we like to say here is we're not just talking about the future of education, we're helping to create it one conversation at a time. And today I have the pleasure of being here with Paul Matthews, a passionate educator, a TEDx speaker, and a co-founder of My Teacher Aid. And with his background as a teacher and AI consultant, Paul really brings a unique insight into how AI can transform the classroom and enhance learning from students everywhere. And that's kind of what we're excited to talk about here on this podcast. So, Paul, just for like the viewers here, I'm curious if you could tell us a little more about your background and what got you so interested in AI and education.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Zach. What a treat it is to be here on the first episode of the podcast. So, a bit about me. I'm an educator, first and foremost. So, I'm a high school history teacher at a school down in Tasmania, Australia. I absolutely love it. I feel like I was put on the earth to be a teacher. I'm actually a third generation teacher, if you can believe. My dad
Wow.
was a school principal and a teacher, and so was his dad. And I've got four brothers. Well, I'm one of four brothers, and three of us are
Okay.
teachers. So like it
Wow.
really is, it's part of the family legacy. It's in my DNA. I really, looking back, don't think I could have done anything else. Um,
Yeah.
and so I still teach. I still teach year 9 history, and I got to tell you, it's one of life's great joys. I've since started doing other things. I consult with schools to help them navigate the problems and possibilities of AI. I have my own software with my team called My Teacher Aid, as you said. But really, I tell you what, I can't see myself leaving the classroom. At least in some capacity, I want to stay there. It's just, as I said, I think it's what I was put on earth to do.
Yeah. I mean, that's super cool. So kind of for a little more background, is like how did you really first start talking about AI? Like when did you first discover AI and what led you to be like seeing how instrumental this could be in the classroom?
I think I started off not so excited about AI. I started off seeing more of the problems than the
Okay.
possibilities. And what really helped me shed that baggage, and this is a big idea, is just starting to use it. Okay. Actually, I find a lot of people who are really hesitant, they look forward and they see a lot of problems that need to be navigated. Once you can actually use it, once you roll up your sleeves and have a crack, I think a lot of people say, "Hey, okay, all right, well, this is not going to take over anytime soon. The robots are not going to come marching through the capital city and take.
Yeah.
This is actually something I could use, perhaps, just to do better work in less time and take greater cares of the needs in my classroom." So that's my big vision for AI,
Okay.
and that's what I started to see as I was using it. I just thought, actually, all those little things that I'm doing that are sort of pushing out work into my evenings, weekends, and holidays, well, actually, I reckon I could do more of those evidence-based things more often for more learners. And that's what really got me excited and sort of seeing the possibilities of AI in my classroom.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, the one thing that we've really found is that, there is quite a big barrier of entry for teachers to get into artificial intelligence. Like, what do you think the biggest barrier is for, like you said, get teachers to roll their sleeves up? Like, what do you think is hardest to really roll your sleeves up for the first time?
Well, that's a good question. And I'm not sure how things are in the States. I was over there recently, and I think it's probably quite similar to Australia. See, in Australia, 70% of teachers say their workloads are manageable. So we've
Yeah.
got a big problem with teacher burnout. We've got a big problem with attracting people to the profession. And when you've got a workforce that is chronically overloaded, they're actually going to be change resistant for the simple reason that they go, "Oh man, this is so much to wrap my head around." And let's be honest, AI is probably the biggest technological shift we've ever seen. So it's bigger than
Yeah.
computers in classrooms. It's bigger than the Gutenberg press. Like it's bigger than everything we've ever seen. And I just think it's unfair of us to expect teachers to try and adapt to the world's biggest shift in technology just off the side of their desks. Like just as another thing on the list of things to do. So what they really need is they need the two T's. They need high
Yeah.
quality training and time off to practice. And I've sent some balloons up there. Well, look, I'm excited about the idea. They need two T's: time off and
Okay.
training. And if we can get them that, and I run training in schools, I find even with 90 minutes that we give teachers a huge step forward in what they're able to do and how they're able to think and really how they're able to benefit their students with AI.
Yeah, I mean, and one thing here at Boodlebox that we're like really passionate about and like mission driven is that like we really care about the collaborative AI aspect. And what like one thing that we and I personally really think is that like to make this work the right way and like to really unlock the future of education, it all starts with like collaboration. And that is between like the tech companies, the students, the teachers, the administrators, and everything like that. And one thing we believe is that like to really push this forward, you need to collaborate on all aspects of things. And like, what would you say? There's one way that like teachers could really benefit from collaborating with their students with AI. Like, if that makes sense, like how could teachers learn from their students?
Well, it's a really interesting time to be having this discussion because maybe in the last 2 decades or so, we've moved into the language within the education space of being learning communities. So, what does that mean then? Well, it means that there's not one group of people over here who've got everything all tucked away and fully understand what's going on. And you've got another group down here, the students, who don't really know much and are learning. Actually, what we've said, and we've been intentional in our language often, is saying we're a whole community of people who is on a learning journey together. Now, yes, some of those are going to be teachers and some of those are going to be students, but we're all still learning. And when I think teachers, we need to embrace this learning mindset. We need to show to our students that we are learners too. Because I have students who come into my class every day. Oh, Mr. Matthews, I can't write essays. Oh, I'm no good at reading. I can't do that. Oh, I can't analyze sources. It's this fixed mindset stuff. And we're always saying, actually, you can. Everything is a skill that can be learned and you can get better. You just have to practice. You just have to try. But if I then am rocking up in my classroom and saying, "Oh, I don't use AI. I'm not a tech person. I can't wrap my head around this stuff. I've never been an early adopter." I'm actually modeling the exact opposite. It's the photo negative of the mindset I want my students to have. So if we're talking about collaborating with our students, actually giving legs to the fact that we are a learning community and that I'm learning and you're learning and we're all navigating this together, not only is that a wise approach to AI, but I think that's going to give credence to the idea that everyone can learn things, that everything is a skill that can be developed, and that we actually model that growth mindset that we just so need our students to have. So I think that's the biggest thing. Show your students you're on a journey. Show them that you're learning too, and show them the progress you're making week to week and who you're learning from and what you're learning and so on. That'll have massive blow-on effects to not just AI, but the whole rest of your practice.
Yeah, because I mean, that does make, I've never really even thought about it like that. What you're doing as a teacher is you're showing the students that, hey, I'm willing to learn. And I think, yeah, I mean, that's a great answer. And like I said, collaboration really is at the heart of what we do here at Boodlebox. So for like teachers looking to encourage collaboration, like collaborative learning with AI, like what are some effective strategies that you've had to like create a more interactive, engaging learning environment between AI and your students? So,
So getting my students to use artificial intelligence.
yeah, like collaboratively, like in a manner where it's not just so. Cause yeah, I phrased that question kind of poorly. So kind of the whole idea is that a lot of the time, AI leads students to just be working one-on-one with a computer. And I know as teachers, that's a big thing that they don't want is that we still want a collaborative classroom. So like what are some strategies you've taken to kind of get your students to collaborate with one another along with artificial intelligence as well? If that
One of the
makes
interesting things we do in our brainstorming phase, so I do a lot of brainstorming in the class
okay.
because I think it's a fantastic tool and it focuses on two things that our students need help with, and that's speaking and listening. So I find students are often pretty good at speaking. They're often not that good at listening. And what that means is that we're all sort of sitting there in a circle, waiting for our turn to talk. And then we're just interjecting with whatever we've been holding up in our brain. And it's not necessarily shaped or nuanced by what's been going on in the classroom. So I do a lot of thinking routines and a lot of sort of pedagogical moves that encourage students not only to speak, but to listen as well. So one of the things I've done is actually we will often break into groups of 2 or 3 to discuss a particular idea. I'll actually encourage students to use AI as somewhat of a conversational partner or a third or fourth view. Now, that's something
Okay.
I've just rolled out in beta. I mean, all my students have access to ChatGPT. And so I've just said, look, let's try this and let's be reflective. And I think that's one of the big things whenever you get students to use artificial intelligence, encourage them to be reflective and say, well, what worked about that? What perhaps didn't work? Where did that meet my expectations? Where did that surpass my expectations? So even as sort of a conversational partner, that's been really interesting, seeing students reflect on how, 2 different people could say the same thing to AI and it will give 2 different responses. What does that tell us? tells us it's not a Google search, right? It
Yeah.
tells us there's a dynamic element. Things are going to be new and novel every time. There's some really helpful learning that we can do with our students when it comes to just getting them to use it. And that's sort of the main way I get students to use it, is as a conversational partner in those brainstorming sessions, not one-on-one with the student, but as part of that conversational group as a third or fourth voice. And that's worked pretty well and helped my students understand a little bit about what the strengths and the weaknesses of AI.
I mean, that's a great answer. It's super cool to see how people are doing it all over the place. And one thing that I've really noticed on your LinkedIn is you talk about like equitable access to AI and how almost like AI, it's one thing we really talk about at Boodlebox is that like AI detectors nowadays are only catching the cheap AI, the free AI. So kind of what's happening is some students who are capable of paying more money are almost paying to be able to like not get caught by AI detectors. So I kind of want to just hear about your thoughts on equitable access to AI and how, I guess there's two questions, and how like AI detectors can kind of cause to like inequities in society now, I guess, that weren't there before.
Mm. Well, I think I'm torn when it comes to sort of equitable use and access to AI, because on one level, this technology has rolled out so quickly and there's so much access that in many ways, so if we go back and we think about the other big shifts in computing, so like the calculator, that rolled out incredibly slowly and it was incredibly costly. Same with the computer, same with the internet, right? And so what we see with all these previous leaps in technology was that they were filtered out, and it was a top-down approach where people with the wealth and the access got it first, and then boy, there was a long waiting list if you were not necessarily in those circles. And what we see with AI is the toothpaste came out of the tube so quickly that pretty much everyone has access. So in that way, it's nice. Now, there are several other things that they don't have access to, like training on the wise principles and practices of AI use. And so you've got some schools that are really switched on. They say, we're going to train our students. It's what I call the if-how problem, Zach. So it's not if they'll use it, it's how they use it, because they will use it, right? And our big problem is that we think it's a matter of if. I don't want to train them to use it because then they might start using AI. It's like, come on, man, the cat's out of the bag, right? They are going to be using AI. So it's not about if, it's about how. And so one of the things when it comes to equitable use and access is everyone's got access, but not everyone's got access to wise use of AI, not because of the AI tool lacking anything, but because it's not the AI, it's the OI, it's the organic intelligence. They haven't been taught and trained in the basic principles and practices and philosophy of how to use AI well. So you could have two different schools using the exact same model of AI, and these students are going to benefit, and it's going to be pedagogically rich and formative. And these guys are just going to give themselves a massive haircut on their education and lose a lot of the learning opportunities just because they haven't been trained to use it wisely. So that's my big call. It's my big call to educators is let's actually train our students. They are going to use it. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how. And actually, we can control really how wisely they use it. We can give them the tools and the abilities to use it wisely in a way that benefits and doesn't subtract from their education.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such an interesting concept with like how so many people, like you said, it's like such a difference in the past of what has happened when like everyone gets it. Everyone has access to it. Anyone that has a phone can use AI right now. Most people have phones, which is just, I don't know, it's crazy. So the last thing before we wrap up here, Paul, is that like the whole idea of education, I mean, at least from some people's perspectives is that it's to prepare you for like what's next after education and like getting a career. And that's also a really interesting space with AI right now, as we see some companies are really adopting it, some companies aren't, like, some companies are having struggles do it. So like, what would you say, like what AI skills are essential for students, kids to learn before they hit the real world where they're going to be, using AI? Like, that makes sense.
It makes heaps of sense. Look, let me answer like this. All these AI questions that we're discussing as an educational community right now, we may not realize, but that's like the iceberg, right? And that's the tip. And down below, the sort of 85% that's beneath the surface of the water, that we're really basing everything on underlying assumptions or worldview. What is the purpose of education? What does it mean to be a human being? What is a life well lived? All these sorts of things. And then when we start discussing AI in education, well, that's really sort of where a lot of these ideas are surfacing, but that's the sort of fruit of these ideas, not necessarily the root. I personally believe that education isn't about getting a job. It's about having a life, right?
Yeah.
And training students and giving them the skills and the abilities to live well. And what does that mean? I want them to be able to think deeply. I want them to be able to argue a case. I want them to be able to relate to one another and channel enthusiasm and passion. I want them to memorize things and have their own store of rich knowledge and sort of engage with the cultural history, the cultural transmission that we've been developing over thousands of years. So there's a lot of really important things that help students not necessarily get a job, but they give them the tools to learn and to adapt to whatever might happen. And the problem with training students with the information that they'll need in a job in 15 years is that we have absolutely no idea the skills that they will need in a job in 15
Yeah.
years. We have, and
Yeah.
look, there's no better time than right now to acknowledge that, because we see the change. I mean, the pace of change is just eye-watering, isn't it, Zach? So
Yeah.
what we actually want to do is we want to train them with those meta skills, the tools of learning. How do I approach situations that I don't understand? How do I learn things that I can't wrap my head around at first? All those meta skills. I think that's really, really important. And sure, that can be done with AI. It can be done not with AI. But I think that's what we want to be framing this as. I want my students not just to be ready for a hypothetical job that may or may not exist in the future of work that's incredibly hard to predict. I want them to be a human being who can love well and relate well and think clearly and structure thoughts, all that sort of meta skills. And
Mhm.
those things will carry our students forward well into the world, no matter what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great answer. I mean, inspiring, honestly, as a young adult here, you got to learn how to like live well, not how to get a job. It's a good concept that I think a lot of people should really kind of understand. And the last question, it's a question I'm going to be asking everyone every week on this show is what is your favorite AI use outside of education? It can't have anything to do with education, like funny, daily. Like I love to use it for cooking. That's my answer to that question. But I'm curious to you if you use it for any funny everyday usage.
Okay. Okay. Well, look, that is a curveball, Zach. Well done. I like that
Sorry.
one. Let me put my cards on the table. This might make me incredibly unpopular. I haven't cooked in 8 years, right? So, since the day I got married, I have not cooked. Now, that's my wife loves cooking, and I do a lot of dishes. But man, so look, I do not use it for that. What do I use it for? I'm someone who likes to process my thoughts verbally. So I do a lot of talking, and I find
Mhm.
if I can speak clearly about something, I can think clearly about something. For some people, that's the other way around. I have to be able to think clearly before I can speak clearly. Me, I
Mhm.
do a lot of talking. Now, I sometimes talk to myself. I say sometimes. I always talk to myself. And these things are God's greatest gift to me because I can put them in and my phone might be at home and I'm out in a walk and people don't look at me funny because I'm talking. They think I'm on the phone, right? One of the things that I actually do is I've got my phone. I use AI. I just fire up ChatGPT. I get it on voice mode and I debrief and discuss ideas. Like the other day, I was on a panel discussion for the University of Tasmania. And I said, as I was on the way up, it was like a 4 hour trip. I had a 2 hour conversation with ChatGPT and I said, ask me the hardest possible questions, interrogate my answers, be antagonistic. Now, of course, the panel went really well and the host was lovely, but I just wanted to be prepared and to hash out these ideas on the way. And so I find AI as a conversational partner really stimulating. And it's sort of
Yeah.
every now and again, it'll push you or surprise you or ask you a question you weren't expecting. And I find that to be a really rich thing, especially for someone like me who learns by talking. Um, I love it. I absolutely love it. So I use that all the time.
Well, that's a great answer. I mean, I'm a big talker myself. I think I'm gonna have to give that a try. Well, thank you to Paul for coming with us on our first or being here on the first ever podcast. I really appreciate your time. And for everyone listening, come back next week. We're gonna have either a teacher, student, educator from somewhere in the world talking about something involving AI and education. And I just want to say thank you so much, Paul. I really